Hello and welcome to my sixth video podcast in the Leadership Speaks. In this interview, I speak with Mr. Tarun Sawhney, Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Triveni Engineering. Triveni is a leading Indian conglomerate with diversified businesses in agriculture and engineering. With 17 world-class facilities, Triveni is a market leader in sugar, ethanol and alcohol, power transmission and water treatment solutions in India. Cambridge and Wharton educated, Mr. Sawhney has successfully led his range of diverse businesses through tough business environments. Having taken over the business from his father in 2012, it is today not only among the country's largest sugar producers, but also among the most efficient. Managing a diverse set of businesses across multiple industries is not an easy task. In this interview, I asked Mr. Sawhney how he managed to do that so successfully. From his story, I learned that there cannot be only one magic solution applicable to all problems. Each problem has to be tackled individually, through hard work, experience, and by finding smart people to help and advise you with their expertise. By sharing his life journey, Mr. Sawhney provides many important life lessons and examples that youngsters and early career seekers may find quite useful. So let's go right ahead and hear Mr. Tarun Sawhney's leadership story in the 6th episode of Leadership Speaks. Good afternoon, I'm Rehan Khaneja and thank you so much for joining me. And before we begin with the questions, would you like to ask me anything?
No, not at all. Please go ahead, Rehan.
So my first question for you is, which college did you go to and what did you study?
So my undergraduate degree was in economics from Emmanuel College, University of Cambridge. And then after a few years, I went and I completed my MBA at the Wharton School, the University of Pennsylvania in the US.
Wow, that's really impressive. At what age did you realize that what you wanted to study?
It's a good question. I think it was when I was probably around 15 or 16. It was the move from ICSE to ISC when you had to sort of whittle down and make a selection of subjects. And I really chose subjects that interested me and that, frankly speaking, that I could score well in. And economics happened to be one of them. And I thoroughly enjoyed that in the 11th and 12th. So, I think it was a core natural selection.
That's really interesting. And how did your specialization in college directly or indirectly help you in what you do today?
So, economics is a very wide-ranging degree. And I think the program at Cambridge was one that covered a large number of spectrums of social sciences. It's more of a indirect assistance, but one nonetheless that is extremely vital. I think it's about thoroughness, it's about completeness, it's about understanding subjects that are challenging, applying them to real life situations, and that process of thinking through problems and thinking through solutions and applying lessons from the past to future problems. That type of thought process is one that can be applied, from an academic life to a professional life, in all circumstances. So I think, it's more of the subjective that has helped.
Right. You talk about problems and solving problems. Being an entrepreneur, I think problem solving is an imperative skill to have. How do you face challenges and what is your guide to problem solving?
So I don't think there's a magic formula. I wish there was, but there really isn't. Hard work, diligence, research. I mean, these are sort of cornerstones, but those are hardly the solutions. Problem solving is very specific. It's dependent on industry. It's dependent on the situation. It's dependent on people. So there are a variety of different aspects. And if I had to sort of generalize one's approach, it's to be cognizant of the environmental factors. I think You can't solve a problem without having an appreciation of the overall environment. An awareness, an acute awareness of one's own individual strengths, okay, or an organization's strengths. I think that's equally important. And then, of course, having the fortitude and the drive to go out and find to actually do the work and to find the solutions. Sometimes it's not about doing the work yourself. Sometimes it's about empowering people to assist you in finding that solution. Not everything can be done by oneself or by one's team. Sometimes you have to rely on experts. Many times you have to rely on experts, outside help. It's about knowing where to go. And that comes through experience, that comes through hard work, and that comes through sometimes ingenuity.
Definitely, I totally agree with you for everything, and especially how we take our environment really seriously, and also before doing anything, think about the harm it will do on our environment. And my next question for you is, you have businesses across many industries like sugar and precision equipment manufacturing, water treatment, the polar opposites. What do you feel is the advantage of having multiple businesses that have no direct correlation?
Well, I don't think there's necessarily an advantage. It gives you two ways of looking at it, I guess. Number one, it makes you more resilient to economic climates and changes in cycles, economic cycles, etc. So it gives you a sort of evenness in terms of cash flows and in terms of business revenue growth and profitability, etc. So it gives you that sort of flexibility. It also gives you an opportunity to be able to allocate resources across multiple segments with great ease. Otherwise, you're only looking at one particular thing, and there is a greater element of risk, but comes with its own set of challenges. So, there are diverse industries. There are obviously multiplying sets of problems because each industry faces its own set of unique situations and problems. And frankly speaking, they too have their own economic cycles. So, the fact is you're always navigating through different environments with different sets of people, different sets of ecosystems, and it requires that much more effort, frankly speaking.
Definitely, and your sugar industry is obviously our biggest industry, and India is the second largest, producer of sugar in the world after Brazil, and is also the largest consumer. In your opinion, do you feel that India will take over the number one spot for manufacturing in the sugar industry?
I don't think it's about number one or number two. That really doesn't matter. India is the largest consumer of sugar, so that's very important, which means we have massive domestic appetite. By becoming the number one producer, it only means that you have more sugar to export. And it's a very complicated problem because you're dealing with 50 million farmers, 52 million farmers. When you multiply that by 4 or 5 to ascertain the number of families, it's a huge, huge number of people in our country. So it's not an apples to apples comparison. I think as far as the Indian sugar industry and agricultural ecosystem is concerned, it's much more about enhancing returns across the entire value chain. So, improving profitability and returns to the farming community, improving efficiency and profitability to tollers, manufacturers, processors of agricultural product, and then offering value to the consumer at the end of the day. That ecosystem and that enhancement and movement in that ecosystem is really what one should look at when one looks at agricultural value chains.
Certainly, and definitely having that number one spot does have its advantages and disadvantages. And moving aside from that, what is your favorite book, and which one would you recommend for someone like me and someone in my age group?
Well, I thought about that actually. I don't know if it's my favorite book. My favorite book is Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Waugh. And I highly recommend that you read that when you go to university, because it is about two young men at university, and it's a classic. It's a really good book. But for you, I would highly recommend reading a book by Hans Rosling called Factfulness. And it's very topical. It was extremely popular last year, Sunday Times bestseller list, etc. And it talks about the world and why things are from a very positive angle and about today. So do read it. You'll enjoy it.
It sounds like a great read. I will definitely read it. And what is one hobby you absolutely cherish and also feel in some way has helped you in being a successful entrepreneur?
Well, I am extremely passionate about golf. And while I do play it as a sport and in my spare time, I play it very seriously. And I think what golf teaches you is that there are always hundreds and thousands of different factors that change every second. And so despite how perfect things may be, you've got to be acutely aware of all the changing things around you in order to be able to continue to strive for perfection. I love golf. I think it's a great game. I think it teaches you a lot about life as well. The only unfortunate thing is with lockdown, you simply can't play that. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, even I play golf and I really love it. And I will definitely continue playing it for the rest of my life. And
Good.
my last and most, I think, important question to me for you is, what is your number one tip for youngsters like me who wish to be entrepreneurs when they grow up?
Well, I think, Rehan, it's a combination of things. I think you have to work hard. Diligence is absolutely vital in becoming an entrepreneur. It's about understanding what risk means, right? And for every entrepreneur, every successful entrepreneur, and every unsuccessful entrepreneur, it is really an equation of risk. It's about understanding what ethics are and being a ethical person in all your endeavors. But I think in the future, for any successful entrepreneur, it will be about carrying your ecosystem, carrying your environment with you, and being responsible, not just for the people that work for you, but for the ecosystem and environment that you're in. And I think that will truly distinguish the really successful entrepreneurs of the future from an average entrepreneur.
Definitely. Thank you so much. I will definitely keep that in mind. I think the environment is the most important thing and we cannot survive without it. And we really have to keep in mind how we treat the environment. So thank you so much. And I will be posting these on my website and on my social media in a few weeks and I'll share the link with you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Take care, Rehan. Goodbye.
That concludes my chat with Mr. Tarun Sawhney, Vice Chairman and MD of Triveni Engineering. This interview was about consistent efforts from making early life choices and seeking the best education to managing complex and diverse businesses. There was so much for me to learn from and get inspired by. Here are two of my main learnings from this amazing leadership journey. First, good education provides you with a process for thinking through problems and applying lessons from past to new problems is a thought process that begins during our academic years and is later useful throughout our life. For youngsters like me who are still studying, this is good advice. And second, it's not possible to do everything by ourselves without any outside help. To be a true leader, they must learn to find the right people and effectively delegate work. There is no one magic solution that can be applied to all problems. Each problem must be tackled individually, through hard work, life experience, and finding the smart people to help and advise you with their expertise. As after every chat, I will be releasing a follow-up video and blog on key takeaways and learnings from each episode. Please view my blog for more. You can share your own opinions in the comment section below. This is the sixth in a series of interviews and podcasts with business leaders and successful role models. My goal is to learn from their experience and find out what choices they have made in their lives that contributed to their success today. If you enjoy watching these episodes, please do hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I will be releasing my next Leadership Speaks podcast very soon. Till then, think positive, have big goals, and focus on the road ahead.